Welcome to The Critical Path, Greater Vancouver Realtors' professionalism and innovation-focused podcast. I'm your host, Jesse Lalime. Each month, we sit down with industry leaders to discuss the critical issues affecting our profession and the paths we must take to overcome them. The Critical Path podcast officially turns 1 year old with this episode, and so we thought it would be the perfect time to welcome back GVR CEO Jeff King, the featured guest on our inaugural episode. Jeff, thanks for joining us today.
Happy to be here, Jesse.
Great to see us here in the studio again. We got a little bit of a different setup than we did last time, but like we were just saying, you know, we're on the same side here. We're going to be talking about a lot of stuff that's going to be of benefit to our members, and so we're really happy to have you here.
Absolutely. It's a thrill to be here and happy to talk about Service Reimagined and some of the other things that are going on.
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll get right into it because, again, this is an anniversary, right? This is a happy time for us. This is our 1 year anniversary. Anniversaries are an opportunity to kind of reflect on the past and to make commitments for the future as well, right? So, throughout 2024, we've been kind of starting the work of Service Reimagined. That was kind of the roots in the groundwork, right? So it's a significant transformation, though, that we're looking for as an outcome of this Service Reimagined program. Mm-hmm. It's a re-engineering project. It's designed to improve our websites, our service provision to our members. Yep. It's the biggest thing we're working on right now. So maybe we'll just start with kind of a sit rep, where we're at right now, how you're feeling about things, where things are going with Service Reimagined.
Okay, all right. So the genesis of Service Reimagined probably was in late 2023 when it became apparent to me that there were some gaps in how we provided services, both in terms of technology and the portal and other things that you alluded to, but even how we managed calls and emails and the member engagement. Then we really kicked it off as a project in early part of 2024. And phase one was really around discovery and sort of honing in on where the different issues are and the different pain points. And it involved essentially everyone in the organization and really involved in a series of workshops and bringing in different experts to help us around work process and modeling and different things to help us identify and prioritize the different elements. A few of things that kind of jumped out to us were things like self-service. We need to provide more self-service for the members, not just here's a phone number or here's an email address.
The ability for them to do things.
Exactly, yeah. Pick courses or pay their fees or different things like that, update their credit card numbers, things like that. We wanted to be more efficient and effective in how we handle incoming calls and emails and different communications with the membership. I think there's a huge opportunity for us to be more proactive with the brokerages. And we're going to talk a little bit later about the account executives and their role and how this will fit into these types of things. I think that it's starting to open up the opportunity for us to explore the potential to provide after-hours support, either more dimensions or different ways to look at it, either using technology or other more creative ways to look at these types of things. And, of course, like you said, the portal. And also the education and sort of a learning pathway approach to how they go through their career and their PDP and those different types of developments. So the first phase sort of ended in July of last year, 2024, and identified those buckets. Then we spent the second half of the year sort of planning it out, and that ended right around the middle of December. And we've got a plan to go forward now. And for 2025, it's really about implementation.
So with that in mind then, because we're talking about 2025 being a year where a lot of these things a lot of this fruit starts to come off of the tree, what are you most excited about for members? What's got you most excited for the membership that you're looking forward to kind of unveiling for them, whether that's this year or a little bit further down the road?
There's two or three big parts, Jesse. The first one's already happened. So Ash Anil, our Chief Membership Officer, has joined us. That was a key element and a significant hire for us.
Our latest podcast guest before you.
Well, very good. And I've listened to his podcast. He did a great job, as always.
He sure did.
And he's been a great addition to the team and represents GVR with the members, of course, but also represents the members inside GVR, which I think is an important dimension. But going past that, I think some of the other items that I'm really excited about is greater consistency around what we offer and clarity around the service provision. The transfer of calls and emails and things I find is not optimal. I think there's ways for us to dramatically improve that through a more centralized member engagement center. Right now we essentially function 3 separate call centers depending on what your needs are, member relations or MLS
Or tech support.
for tech support, that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's opportunities for us to do that differently and better. But in order to do that, we have to build a knowledge base so that the staff can access that and have different levels of expertise. And I'm quite excited about the account executives and the ability for us to be proactive. I think it'll be an industry first, and I think it's an opportunity for us to really move a needle in a dramatic way around those elements.
I was going to say, because the account executive model is probably one of the biggest pieces of this whole thing, right? And that's probably going to be the one that the member will feel the most change on, kind of, right?
Certainly the brokerages. And so close observers probably noticed that we posted for the first couple of roles. We don't know exactly how many we need. I've got kind of a number in mind, probably between 6 to 8. And they'll be focused on helping the brokerages both in terms of proactive stuff. Here's things that GVR has going on. Here's some new things from the regulator. Here's some new tools. Here's some new issues that have come up. But also to seek out information. What are some areas where we can improve? Those types of things. It's been an area that I think we can do a better job on. And I'm excited about that. So the idea is the first couple of account execs will start probably sometime this quarter, Q1. There'll be a training period and a ramp up, and then they'll start hitting the streets, so to speak, likely towards the end of Q2.
So it's kind of the early days of this process, and that's really exciting because I was going to ask a little bit about timelines and what members might expect to see first, or maybe not necessarily first, but some of the first kind of iterations of the fruits of this project coming to bear.
Yeah, I think the first things that they'll see will be, last year we started off with some of the member mixers, which were kind of a reinvention and reimagination of the Member Connect sessions. A little bit less formal, less like mini AGMs, and more sort of a social element, along with some business update. The account execs, along with Ash and Craig Munn, our Chief Corporate Development Officer, and myself will be shepherding different things like this, and we'll have increased frequency for engagement. And not just in Vancouver, obviously, but also in other areas within our catchment. I'm excited about that. I think the account execs are going to be very helpful for that because it's a pretty wide expanse that we cover. 15,000 members, ranging from Whistler to the Tri-Cities. And I think that will be one of the first things that folks will start to see. Of course, we'll be communicating as we go along and different elements of it. The Member Engagement Center, that's probably later this year because there's workflows and different things along those lines that have to be worked out. I think there's huge opportunities around how we handle things internally. This is not, the members won't see it, but we have a lot of manual processes. That was one of the things that surprised me when we were sort of preparing and going through this process of re-engineering, as you said. Human intellectual intelligence is great, right? And but you do open yourselves up to that. It can be slower. It could be transformational errors. It could be typos. It could be you name it. We want to look to find different ways to automate those or provide self-service for the members so they can help manage some of these things to make it move faster. And I think that will be a thing that will start to come out along with other tools that I think Ash touched on around AI and different things around photographs and such. I think they'll make the member experience much better. And that'll make things that look like simple requests. Why does it take us so long? We're going to start moving at what I call the speed of business. And we're going to start to move those things much more quickly. But we have to work through the workflows to sort of make sure that we document that well, and so that's easily repeatable through a variety of circumstances, and to capture certainly the 80-20 rule, the Pareto calculation.
So you were talking a little bit about some of the services we've already, and some of the relationship with AI, right? Because we are offering some more tools. I mean, by the time this is released, Respi.ai will be out in the wild, helping our members with their images and their descriptions and saving time there. There's been things like Local Logic. A lot of the big rollout of tech products that came from the end of last year is part of Service Reimagined.
Absolutely, yeah, 100% correct. And a big part of it is, I think technology is an enabler. And it allows realtors to, free up their time to build those relationships. It's still a people business. People will talk about the belly-to-belly, face-to-face. There's a lot of truth to that. And that's really part of the magic of the realtor. You build a trust and a relationship as they walk you through it. I kind of liken it to like a Sherpa.
Sure.
They help you go through the climbing the mountain, all the rest of it. You get the credit for climbing the mountain, but you can't do it without the Sherpa. And so if you're buying or selling a house or a business, the realtor is a key element to that. But by using tools like AI and different ways about automating different things, or autocomplete on different forums and different elements like that, some of which have already been rolled out, other ones are coming shortly. That will free up time for the realtor to really spend times on the more higher value elements of what they're doing. I think that's super important. I liken it to other industries who have been faced with similar disintermediation pressures. The reality is, accountants were not eliminated by Excel or Lotus 1-2-3.
Sure. Yeah.
But accountants that use Excel and Lotus 1-2-3 were able to outcompete the ones that were not. And I think a similar type thing will happen with our membership. That people who engage with technology, or at least have access to it, will have opportunities to outcompete. I think there's one thing that's pretty clear to me. We're in the process of seeing a disruption to the industry. And so I don't believe that we can future-proof. I think that's a kind of a misnomer. But I think we can help prep. We can be well prepared for a future. And that's really what a big part of my job is to do, is to make sure that GVR and our membership is as prepared as possible for what that new world looks like. There's no guarantees. There's no guarantees of anything in life, of course. But having said that, if we prepare appropriately, I think we can not just survive what the future looks like, but really thrive going into the 2030s and beyond.
And going into some of that preparation, because you touched on a little bit, with say bringing Ash on, right, as a chief membership officer. How are we evolving internally to meet the needs and requirements that the Service Reimagined project demands of us?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's 2 or 3 big elements. So in the fall of 2023, when my monthly update to the staff, I sent a note to all staff. I said, hey, what's something that makes you roll your eyes or complain to the neighbors, or you just go, this seems strange? And I got back probably about 50 different ideas, things that some of which were just incredibly manual, some were kind of ancient, hadn't been looked at in a long time, things where people saw opportunity but weren't quite sure how we could examine that. And in doing that process, that got me thinking. I said, well, can I see let's pull together all our frequently asked questions and take a look at it. My plan was to take the frequently asked questions, the FAQs, and run them through a proprietary AI tool.
Okay.
And to sort of see if there's a pattern here.
Mm-hmm.
Other companies might have 20 or 30,000 FAQs. And so you pull it through, you see different patterns. Here's what people ask about generally. We had 15.
Really?
Not 15,000, 15.
Huh.
And 4 of them had to do with kind of basic, what's our address? What's the Wi-Fi password? What's the phone number for the help desk? What's the email? That type of thing. So it was clear we need to build a knowledge base. Right? And if we're going to have a member engagement center that really works, we need to have the tools available so that the folks staffing that, the information officers, so to speak, the ones answering the calls, handling these queries, are able to have access to all the information about GVR, how it works, how things go. We have a tremendous amount of knowledge. The intellectual capital of the organization is immense. We have a number of longstanding folks that work here that really know the business inside out, extremely knowledgeable. We have to find ways to put that sort of onto a drive, onto a platform that people can access, and that we have ability to share and leverage that and really take advantage of the scale of being one of the largest boards in the country, take advantage of that scale that we have and to be able to do that. So we started work around building this knowledge base and to start to collect these different things. So we're identifying what the workflow looks like, the different stages to it, and building out what these frequency asked questions will be. Ultimately, my vision is that we'll end up with a member engagement center that when someone calls in, the phone number will be recognized by the system. When it gets through to the MLS agent or the information officer, it'll pop up on the screen. This is Mr. or Miss Member. Here's their information. Here's all their active listings. Here's their courses they've taken, all that stuff. That'll make their lives faster for the member calling in and more complete and a much more professional type of experience. In order to help do that, we had to augment some of our team. So we brought on Ash. Ash has a lot of experience with customer experience, what they call CX, customer experience, and also has a regulatory background to some degree. And so he kind of can view things from a unique perspective. We're also in the process of bringing on a vice president of HR, Megan Stannard, who's served us extremely well as director of HR over the last several years, is retiring at the end of April. We're going to be bringing in a new person who's got experience in dealing with large, multi-dimensional type projects of this type to help us migrate through this. And we staff up appropriately, and we're ready to deal with these types of challenges. Then there's some other technological tools about how we communicate with each other internally. Everything from instant messaging, and how we manage our projects, and there's different approaches and different styles. I think the listeners probably aren't too worried about the techniques, but we are thinking about those types of things and working through it so that we work in an agile way that's fast, very iterative, and frankly, something that can kind of follow a model, what's called a Kaizen model, like the Japanese continuous improvement.
Right.
Get 1% better every day, and then by the end of the year, you're blown away how much better it is. Mm-hmm. And we were not structured to be able to do that. It was separate, independent silos. This new approach with the augmentation, including bringing on some technical folks, including some IT expertise. Ashu Dasant has joined us in the IT team as a manager, and he's starting to build out a team of developers and stuff to support the existing people who were here already, who are very knowledgeable about the business, bring in another lens about how do we look at these types of things. And we're also looking at establishing relationships with the technical schools, BCIT in particular, about bringing in students to help us with the programming, the development, and all those types of things. In my experience, that's a very cost-effective, very fast way to move things along, so we can make these things happen in 2025, and the members will start to see the impact and positive changes. So it's very exciting.
It's a lot, right?
It's a lot,
and I was going to ask about, because it sounds like to listen to a lot of what you're saying. I was going to ask about what maybe some of the unexpected challenges that the Service Reimagine work has kind of surfaced, but it sounds like, to me anyways, from what you're saying, when challenges are identified, they're kind of addressed right away, right?
Correct. And some of them were that we had the knowledge, but it's locked in people's heads, like I said.
Right.
Or some of the workflows and how we handle things were pieces of paper being handed around to different people. We're trying to address those. Other ones we're putting sort of on the table and sort of keeping track of them in a parking lot, so to speak, to see if there's different ways that we can identify those. We're a small company at the end of the day. We have about 110 or so folks that work here. The average Walmart in Canada has about 400 employees. I know it's a much different business. I'm not saying that we're Walmart or anything like that, but to give you a scale, it's not like I can wave something and say, hey, here's 30 engineers and go turn them loose on something. We don't have that type of business. So we have to work in a very practical way and prioritize ruthlessly and just be very, very focused on it and try to move very, very quickly as we try to do it. But there have been challenges, right? There are challenges I've identified. When I sent out that first note in the fall of 2023, some people came back instantly with some things, said, this has been driving me nuts since the 90s. Please fix it. Mm-hmm. And then when you look at, okay, but I can see why it took forever to fix, because sometimes some of the things, technology was not there yet, and other things, it would take an investment or expertise to help us sort of work our way through it, the engineering part of it. So we're working hard to address it, but those are the types of things that are coming up.
So you mentioned something that got me thinking. You just mentioned the term parking lot.
Oh, yeah.
And, we're talking a lot about Service Reimagined and the evolution of GVR. We're also thinking a bit about the evolution of the building that we work in here, right? Because, things have changed. There's a little bit more of a mobile workforce with work from home and some people in the office, some people out. Maximizing the asset that is this building, because it is one of our biggest assets. Talk a little bit about what's going on there.
It's a great question. It is our biggest asset in terms of financial asset. I think the most valuable element for GVR as an association obviously is our relationship with our members. That is an invaluable element. But in terms of financial assets, yes, it's the building. And the building's underutilized right now. It's a beautiful building with a great opportunity, a great location, and we're in the Broadway plan and all those types of things. I think if anything, the economic value of the building is going to go up. So there's two main areas that we're looking at doing. One is how to deploy the building better now in the way it's currently configured. So we have a couple of tenants. We've had a history of having tenants in the building going back decades, really.
Mm-hmm.
The tenants and who they were have changed over the years, but we've always sort of had that. We're open to the idea of bringing others in, so we're starting to entertain ways to configure the building differently so that we can maybe use the first floor to rent it out and move the staff to the second floor, things along those lines. But in the interim, we're already we have an agreement with someone to rent 15 parking spots. So they
Oh,
have
wow.
15 reserved parking spots in the building. They pay on time and they're paying market rate and all that type of stuff, which is great. And we're pleased to work with them. We also rent out the facilities for people that want to use it for training or for different events. We have a spectacular view of the city, by the way. There's a shameless plug. But the view is unbelievable. Even longtime Vancouverites, you don't really see Vancouver from the perspective of the GVR building very often. We're largely, for those of folks who don't come to the office at all or rarely, we're generally in a residential area. There's a few buildings nearby, but not a lot. And the buildings nearby are mostly residential, and a couple office towers have been emerging under the Broadway plan element. So we're doing something short term to sort of augment and increase the usage of the building, and we are exploring some different elements around even member use of it. But we want to be smart and realize potential legal exposure, so we have to manage that carefully. But we're also taking a hard look at the building long term. I think there's a fiduciary responsibility for us to take a look to make sure that we're maximizing the value for the membership. So there's a work team that's taking a look at what could not just be the highest and best use, but what could really be a leadership use of the building. And everything's kind of on the table for that. That work was, we're aiming towards having a recommendation for the board of directors to consider towards the end of 2025. As you can imagine, it's a long process with a lot of factors to consider. It's not something we're going to take lightly, but we're going to be very thoughtful and contemplative about it. But I think there's it could be an opportunity to do something that might be quite special, and maybe even the L word, legacy. There might be a legacy element there that could be very interesting.
It's really exciting.
But don't want to get too ahead of ourselves. It could end up doing nothing. This is fine. We'll just wait and see. Or we might look to apply for rezoning or work with someone else to do something magical with the building.
The thoughts are, the opportunities are all there, right?
For sure.
There's lots of different possibilities.
Yeah, I can't help but notice I see the PCI building down the street, and then there's another location on our block here that's been sold. I have a bit of a professional relationship with he's my dentist.
Oh,
so the dentist in the street there, he doesn't own the building, but he's a tenant, and he was telling me that the people own it. Their plans to put up like a 30-story tower, mixed use type of thing, all the rest of it. Okay. So I think Vancouver's moving to a next stage of its evolution, and I think there's an opportunity for GVR to be a part of that.
It's amazing. We've covered some serious ground here on Service Reimagined. I'd like to pull back just a little bit and just have a little bit of a chat about kind of, the state of the world, for lack of a better term.
Oh, okay, all right.
You're fond of saying, disruption and change are more constant than ever, but these bring opportunities as well, right? So, the threats of tariffs, the global uncertainty with, regions in Europe and Asia, where do you see the biggest challenges coming from outside of the bubble of real estate for our members in 2025?
Okay, that's a great question. So if you got an hour,
it's a big one. Yeah, I was going to say we're coming up on time, so please fit this question's response into.
I feel like it should be Jamie. Pull up a video. I want to see the talking donkey. I think fundamentally a lot of these things are interwoven. And it includes everything from the war in Ukraine to what's going on in the Middle East to what's happening south of the border. So to me, when you look at it, the disruption is happening in several facets. The way I tend to break it down is I'm a big believer in the PEST approach: political, economic, social, and technology. On the political front, we have a very much of an activist government in the United States now that's moving very rapidly with changing focus almost by the hour. As we record this, the tariffs are back on for Canada and other nations. We'll dive into that. We'll pull that string just for a moment. Fundamentally, the tariffs are a tax, and when you increase taxes, and including I'm not an economist, but including the friendly fire element,
Right.
or Canadian rebuttal tariffs on American goods coming in. That's going to contract the Canadian economy.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I take a look at some of the leading economic indicators, the Canadian economy is stumbling along. I think I can make a good case. If it's not in a recession, it's pretty close. And productivity is dropping, which is not a good sign. And with the threat of tariffs, and the U.S. economy right now is very strong, but tariffs will impact the Americans as well. That could slow down. And there's talk about U.S. dividend checks for $5,000 a person and all that type of stuff, and the Doge things. Like, there's a lot going on. Having said that, if we start to see a bit of a slowdown in North America on those elements, people are going to be cautious, including the buyers and sellers. We've seen a surge in listings in 2025, but not a lot of sales activity. And when I look at the deeper economics stats, Canadians pay their mortgages. The delinquency rate is infinitesimal,
Mm-hmm.
and that's worth keeping in mind, because I think the housing attainability and other issues like that will be important conversations in the upcoming election in Canada, keeping with the political theme. But having said that, when you take a look at the subprime auto in Canada, the delinquency rate's starting to climb, and so it's we don't call it subprime auto in Canada, but that's generally what it is. The number of people past 90 days past due is higher than it's been since the pandemic. It's an alarm, right? So I think we're going to see some economic slowdowns. The political winds of change are happening. I think Mark Carney's been an interesting introduction into the political landscape in Canada. I think what looked like fait accompli 90 days ago may not be the case. With Poilievre, it may end up being another minority government, or very close, too close to call. There's other elements in Europe, and Canada's relationship with the Europeans, Canada's relationship with the even the rise of the Kanzuk group, right? Canada, Australia, New Zealand, UK. They're trying to gain traction about creating their own sort of Five Eyes type of approach around security and free trade and different things like that. Those are different elements. Then add in the social elements. There's a number of different pieces happening in terms of litigation in the United States, different changes in how real estate's handled down there. We have a very active regulator in British Columbia around real estate. We have a good relationship with the regulator. We want to keep it that way.
Right.
But that's something else to keep our mind on as these things begin to evolve. And then last but not least, the technology piece of it is moving rapidly in several different directions. We're seeing the rise of companies looking to try to be disintermediaries and try to either minimize or entirely cut out the role of the realtor. I don't think they're going to be successful, but I think that they're going to be forces to reckon with. I think there's a number of challenges at play that we have to work with. Having said that, I gave a speech the other day, and I always say, choppy seas make for better sailors. And when the seas get choppy, you don't yell at the sea, you adjust your sails.
You start working.
You get the sails, you start to deal with it. So for us, it's things like modernizing our technology. It's streamlining how we provide services, being more efficient in how we operate. I think that's an important part for how we do things. Make sure that we're maximizing the use of our resources. Along those lines, the building, obviously, which we just talked about. We also modernized our investment strategy to help ensure a stronger, more consistent return on our investment of the reserves that we're sitting on. Because we're going to have to weather a bit of a storm, I think. So there's a lot going on, but rest assured, we're in good hands, and we're going to see our way through this.
This has been a fantastic conversation. I really appreciate you coming out to have it with us today. I want to close with a little bit of a taste of your own medicine.
Okay.
We talked a little bit about this before we started recording, and you're in great regular communication with the staff here at GVR. You often close your messages with a question to ponder.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've got one for you.
Oh, good.
If you could have a conversation with any leader, past or present, who would it be, and what's the one question you would ask them?
Okay, any leader, past or present, one question I would ask them. It would probably be Abraham Lincoln. And the question would be, if I'm asking it at the time, contemporaneously, I would say, how confident are you that this is going to work? If I'm asking him now, and he's in the current days, I would ask him, how did he get through the various pressures, and be able to see his way through it.
Juggling everything.
From civil war to economic unrest to you name it.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
The socio-economic stuff.
All that stuff.
Everything.
Assassination attempts.
Yeah.
I'm in the process of writing a bit of a book on another assassination attempt on Lincoln that happened about 6 months before he was actually assassinated.
Interesting.
And he was shot through his hat while he was riding his horse going through a park that no longer exists, but going through a park near the White House, going to a little cottage that he would often go at just to relax. Which reminds me of the importance of disconnecting, right? Winston Churchill, famously during World War II, would come to Canada for basically long weekends, and he called it Fortress North America. He would go to Quebec or Ontario and hang around, drink, and relax, and sort of forget about the war for a bit, and then find his way to go
recalibrate
and such. Mm-hmm. And at the time, when I first heard about it, I thought, well, that seems crazy. But now that you start thinking about it, that was genius.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about drinking and all that, but to each his own, right? But but the idea of disconnecting, putting the clutch in, and I think that's good advice for everyone, including myself.
Perfect. That's great. Thank you so much again.
Yeah.
That's a perfect answer. I couldn't really think of anything beyond Grady Little in 2003 and asking him, why didn't you pull Pedro? Why didn't you do that? That's a deep cut for Red Sox fans. That might not hit with everybody. But thanks again for joining The Critical Path today and sharing these insights with our listeners. As I talked about before, the seeds of this Serviced Reimagined work began last year. They're going to grow and bloom in 2025. Our members can expect to taste the fruits of this work throughout the year as more services and enhancements are completed and deployed. So stay tuned for all the latest updates. If you want to hear more, attend our AGM on March 27th. It'll be a great way to get connected with the latest of what's happening here at GVR. So thanks again for listening. I'm Jesse Lalime, and we'll see you down the next Critical Path.